Hey everybody, it's Jason from the Texas Gun Vault 2, and we're back out here in my hot garage. And yesterday, actually it was last night, late last night, I was able to go to the range, and normally I try to make content about my first impressions when I immediately come back from the range, but I was just tired. I had to take a shower and go to bed. And so here we are the next day, and I want to share with you my experiences, my initial thoughts and impressions. And by the way, if you're watching this video for the very first time on my channel, this is my behind the scenes channel. It's why it's called the Texas Gun Vault 2. I have a main channel where I do all of these in like proper reviews, because sometimes people will say, that wasn't a good review. You didn't say it. Like, this is just my initial impressions. This is not the formal review. This is just a behind the scenes channel for my biggest fans. But anyway, I did take two firearms to the range. One I talked about I took on a previous range trip, but I just didn't get around to it. And we'll talk about that one first. Here is the FB Radom Beryl. So this is an AK-47. Well, it's not AK-47. I said AK-74, and someone said, that's not an AK-74. I think it kind of is. I looked online for what the specific definition of an AK-74 is, and some people say it's an AK that's chambered in a 22 caliber projectile intermediate cartridge. So like the 5.45 by 39, so forth kind of stuff, or 5.56 by 45. That's what we have here. Of course, this is made in Poland. It is made by a NATO country for NATO troops, and it's kind of weird to think that there are AKs out there in the world that are NATO firearms, and that's what we have here. And the owner of this firearm, Matt, has done an amazing job of tracking down like proper furniture for it, and it looks fantastic. I mean, it's very much probably as close as you can get to what they actually use in Poland. I mean, he was looking at pictures of like the right optics and just the way everything's set up, and it's a great rifle. He has the bayonet and the sling for which I have, which he let me borrow. So I'll probably take some pictures of that and might include it in the review. But I took off the sling for the review. And so I took this to the range. And by the way, I know some people are going to say, you didn't safety check that. Yeah, I did before I filmed. So this is a very heavy firearm. Now that's the big downside of this. The takeaway is, this might be my favorite AK I've ever shot. And I didn't really think I would like an AK in 5.56. For me, it's like, mixing two things that just don't belong together. An American cartridge with a Russian designed firearm. It's like chambering an AR-15 in 7.62 by 39. It's just like, why, right? So I was like, I don't know if I'm going to like that. And it's really good. This firearm is accurate. The trigger in it's really nice. It's built like a tank. I think this AK changes my mind on, when I say things like the AK is a crude weapon, because the receiver on this gun, the barrel, all the parts and components of this rifle really seem high quality. It doesn't seem like it's thrown together in some third world nation. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing when it comes to AKs, because there's a certain nostalgia, there's a certain quaintness about that, to know the firearm's history and its philosophy of use. But this is something on a totally different level, in my opinion. And I've shot AKs from some of the top manufacturers here in the US, and I personally think this is the nicest one. Hands down, from the finish, the receiver, the quality of the parts, to its function, this gun is awesome. Just a fantastic experience. But this is very, very heavy. And that was my biggest takeaway. So I'm sitting here with a AK that shoots better than just about any AK I've ever shot. Handling it, the quality is better than any AK I've ever held. But it's a heavy gun. And I actually kind of felt myself getting tired towards the end, because I had to do certain segments. People don't understand that when I go to the range, it's not a fun trip. I'm not saying it's not fun to go review guns, but I'm saying it's not just me going to the range to have fun. It's work. It's business, essentially. And I have a certain program and I don't want to spend all day there. I got my cameras set up, so I know what I have to film. And so after a while, of doing it like a certain program, after shooting this for a while, I'm like, this is not as fun to shoot because of the weight. Now, if I was just there, just having some fun with some friends and put a few rounds down range, it'd be just fine. But I really kind of feel like the philosophy of use of this particular AK in general, which is, of course, a military firearm, I feel like it's way too heavy. I kind of feel like I may need to get out a scale on this thing or do some type of measurements with that, because it's not unwieldy, it's just heavy. I always say one of the most enlightening experiences of my firearms journey was years and years after, building clone rifles, owning AR-15s, getting to handle a M16A1 clone. Because the original M16A1, as designed by Eugene Stoner, is exceptionally light, has a pencil barrel, and you're like, man, did we get away from this awesome idea? Because, ounces become pounds in the field, as soldiers say. And when you have a firearm that's just heavy, I would say somebody that's out in the field for days on end, surviving, and carrying around all the stuff that they have to carry, it probably becomes a burden. And so when you get to carry like an M16A1, you're like, it's almost feels like a toy. It's that light. This definitely does not feel like a toy. And I know I'm going to get the AK people, the AK tards are going to come on to the review when I finally, make it and say, you need to go work out, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, a lot of these comments I think come from people that aren't in the military, or they just do their little role-playing fantasies of, they're a militia member or something, and they're going to carry this into battle one day or something. I don't know. And I don't really think that they look beyond the gun's function and its history. It's a heavy rifle. And that's probably going to be my big downside to this, and why I probably won't give it 5 out of 5 stars. I'll probably give this... I'll have to review the footage. It's going to get 4.75 stars, but the weight of this. The other thing, when it comes to the review of this rifle, that I'm already preparing, because I know, why do I torture myself and review AKs? I don't know. I'm not saying they're bad. It's just because I know who's going to watch them, and I already know the comments I'm going to get. I fully admit I'm an average gun guy. And I'm not an expert shot. I'm not one of these professional AK reviewers. Everyone talks about, was it Brandon Herrera or whatever, and Robski and all that kind of stuff. And that's what they expect from AK content. And they're not going to get that from me. But I am definitely an AR-15 shooter, because my problems that I had personally with this gun shooting are because I'm so used to ARs. So, for example, my first shots with this, I wasn't counting the rounds in my head. And of course, at the very end, you guys know AKs don't lock back after the last time they've been shot. Or the last round of the magazine. So I'm sitting there and I go click, and I know I dropped the muzzle a little bit. I was like, oh, should I keep that in there? Yeah, I'm going to keep that in there. And then when it comes to the quick magazine change, these are so much harder for me to change out quickly. Now, also understand this is not my rifle. So there's a certain degree of respect I have to give it. Now, I know some people, when it comes to these quick magazine changes on AKs, they'll have a mag or whatever, the mag they're going to load, and they push the lever with the mag this way to strip the previous magazine out and, load this. Well, I don't want to damage Matt's gun. So, it's like a pristine example. So I'm not going to do that. So I try to do it, I guess, in a more traditional way. I would shoot it, and then I would push the lever, which, by the way, I love the lever on this thing. It is gigantic, and it does make magazine releases so much easier. But I did this, and it doesn't really fall out. I kind of had a hard time getting it out. I think I picked up the next magazine to load, and I was like, wait, what am I going to do? So that was kind of a little bit of a struggle bus for me. And I don't think I perform as well with this. I'm not as accurate as I am on AKs, but I know with ARs, but I know it's because I'm more of an AR guy than an AK guy. I'm just so familiar with the manual of arms. But I got to give those caveats in the video that I don't expect somebody to come away from my review going, oh, you're going to be an awesome AK shooter. It's like, no, you're an average gun guy that might have some expendable income, and you hear that these are just some of the best AKs, and you go ahead and buy it, and you just take it to the range with your friends, but you're normally used to shooting ARs. That's the type of review that I'm going to do. But I had a great time with this. Very impressed with it. Very impressed with it. And I would say if I ever have an opportunity to acquire one of these, I might look into it. I think they make, honestly, some of the best AKs out there. This thing has just been awesome. Just the extended controls on the safety, just everything about it. I even like, even though I think it looks kind of goofy, it looks kind of blocky, I really like the stock. Just everything about it is just right, and it's just heavy. So that's my opinions on this. It's going to be a rough review from the standpoint of, I know the AK people are going to probably rip it apart, but it is what it is. All right, so that is the Beryl AK, or Beryl, I guess I should say, because it's named after the element beryllium, but not really 100% sure how to pronounce that properly. All right, so the next gun I had a chance to take to the range, also in 5.56, is we have this Knight's Armament SR-15, and I believe this one is 10.5 inches in the barrel. Yeah, I think that's what this one is. And I have not reviewed an SR-15 pistol in this barrel length yet. I've done some that are longer, so this is my first time reviewing one of these. Now, I shot this after the barrel, and I was amazed with how light this is. Even though Knight's Armament ARs are not the lightest guns, I really felt the difference between this. And like all Knight's Armaments, high quality, high quality. I like the color. I do not believe this is a factory color. I have to go back and see what D wrote me in the information. I believe this was a aftermarket Cerakote job for this OD green, but it looks fantastic. And it shoots like you would expect. Super nice, super nice. I was able to try to review this with two different suppressors. Now, the first suppressor I tried is the Knight's Armament. Let me get the exact model number on this one. This is the 5.56 QDC MCQ. Now look how tiny that is. Now, when I saw this, I kind of thought this was more of like a glorified like muzzle brake, essentially, because I think looking through this, you have like, I don't know, like 2 baffles in there. I mean, it has almost no volume to it whatsoever, because the muzzle device is going to go in about halfway, you know, into the QD slot here. But I was like, okay, this thing cannot suppress that well. So I installed it and shot it. And I got to say something about these Knight's cans and the new QD system. I think that looks great, the way it mounts. Maybe I'm not a big fan of the color contrast here, but the way that it mounts, it looks really, really nice. And of course, Knight's Armament has that kind of like corncob look to their suppressor, which I do like, or golf ball look, however you want to say it. But on a 10.5 inch barrel, this is a glorified muzzle brake. It is definitely not hearing safe. It does reduce the recoil a little bit. And obviously, I guess it will reduce the report of the firearm a little bit, but I will tell you, it is not hearing safe. Now, of course, I'm always using hearing protection because I'm shooting these guns at an indoor range. I did not have any real discernible difference in the report, but when it came to accuracy, a little bit of accuracy, and it lowers the recoil. So it kind of does what a suppressor is supposed to do from a function standpoint when it comes to how the gun shoots. But from an actual suppression standpoint, it doesn't do anything at all. That's just my personal opinion. Maybe this thing would be awesome on a like a 16-inch barrel. It would probably do a lot better. The other suppressor that I was able to use is the Knight's Armament model 5.56 QDC CRS. So it's pretty much the same thing, just a lot longer. But this is still a very small suppressor as compared to other 5.56 suppressors. My NT4 suppressor is probably about this long compared to this one. And my Yankee Hill Machine 5.56 suppressors are wider. So this thing doesn't really have a lot of volume either. So I don't think either of these are really designed to make them like hearing safe or, or super quiet. It's just more to reduce the report a little bit, make the gun a little bit more comfortable to shoot. Because you're definitely not suppressing this thing, completely and making it, what do they say, silent or any of that. But let's see if I gotta loosen that thing up. Hold on one second here. Make sure it goes on right. I got to get used to their new system. There it goes. All right, so here's what it looks like on this, and I think that looks a lot better than the previous one. I like the size of it. Now, this one, I would say, probably makes it barely hearing safe, or it's right on the edge. Now, I don't have the instruments to be able to check for decibel rating, but I would say it's probably in the 140-ish, probably a little bit higher, probably 142. I mean, OSHA says 140 is the highest that's safe, but I wouldn't even be comfortable with that. I'd want to get it down to like the 130s, but this thing does a better job at suppression, recoil reduction, and accuracy than this thing does. So I filmed a majority of the range report with this particular suppressor on it, and it doesn't really add that much weight overall, but because it's such a hefty can, and I mean that more like in, it's not heavy, it just counteracts the balance of this gun a little bit too much. So like when you put this one on, you feel that it's more front heavy. So it's not super heavy, it's just, it changes the balance of it. So that's when I got on that, and I filmed most of the range report on this one. Now, I was careful, because you guys know the last time I took a firearm to the range, and I used my range bag as a rest, I burnt a hole in the rifle bag, which I don't think I have out here. But yeah, I burnt a hole in it. And that suppressor at the range was 450 degrees. Well, I was curious on this one because I tested it before I did the long range. I say long range, the 25-yard kind of shooting from the bench thing. I usually film the mag change test and the mag dump test kind of before that. And I was like curious because, I shot a little bit through this, not a whole ton, but pretty fast. I was like, I wonder what this suppressor is getting up to. I am not joking with you when I say I put the laser thermometer on this and it was 670 degrees right up here on the top. And I wasn't even shooting all that much, like all that fast. I would say at that point I probably had 120 rounds through it over the course of 30 minutes. But I had just done a quick magazine change test, so that would have been 40 rounds plus the Magnum test of 30 rounds. So, but that was a quick success. But it got up to 650 degrees, and yeah, that is hot. That is super hot. That's dangerous hot. But I had to wait for it to cool down to remove it, but I didn't damage my bag or anything, so that's it. So there you go. Overall, great gun, very accurate, well-balanced, Knight's Armament. I think D should SBR this thing because this thing would be sweet with a proper stock on it. But that was my experiences with these firearms. So what do you guys think? Do you guys like either of them? Two very different firearms, but both are chambered in 5.56. The barrel is just really heavy for an AK. And of course, I shoot it like an AR shooter. And then we have this awesome Knight's Armament, which this one is probably going to be my favorite Knight's Armament SR-15 I've ever reviewed. I think I've reviewed three or four others. This was the best. This was the best. So there you go. So what do you guys think in the comment section below? And if you watched to the end, of today's video, let's make the word of the day. Looking at these two different guns. Heavy. Heavy is the word of the day because the barrel was heavy. So anyway, hope you guys enjoy these. And once again, if you've made it to the end of this made it to the end of this video, the range report on these videos will be on my main channel sometime in the future. Okay, so this is not an official review. It's just like my initial thoughts before I even edit the range footage, create the bullet point script, film the video, edit the video, upload the video, and then set it for a release date for some time in the future. So there you go. So thanks for joining me here in the garage, and I hope you guys like these first impressions videos. And I love talking about these guns and my experiences with them. So, as always, thanks for watching.